Hi everyone, welcome Eddie Stone, CEO and founder of Touchstone Essentials. Hello Eddie.
Hello, Perry. Hello to everybody. I appreciate our chance to talk here during the middle of all this stuff. Not even sure what to fully call it. Our global pandemic, I guess, is the thing we should say.
So how is the situation there? How is life over there now?
Well, where I live in North Carolina, it's less stressed regarding sort of locally, hospitals and rising rates of sickness and even death. But about 9 hours by car north of me in New York, this has just been a terrible week so far, on top of an already terrible time. I think they had almost 800 people die yesterday, which is, huge tragedy. And they think the next several days, those rates of both sickness and death and hospitalization are just going to get worse and worse. And so, we hope we just have one more really, really bad week. But obviously this is a tough time. And, for myself, I really look at all those first responders, the police and the fire and the ambulance drivers and the nurses and the doctors, and boy, what heroes those people are, putting themselves in harm's way. And in the US, I don't know how it is in Thailand, but we have continued to have trouble with the protective gear that they wear. I think it's getting a little bit better, but we were underprepared.
Mm-hmm.
And they seem to be figuring things out from the respirators that the really sick people need. But it's a challenging, stressful time. And, I don't know, in my lifetime, maybe you think of this a little different, but in my lifetime, I can't think of an event like this that so involved the whole world.
Correct.
There's no place that we don't look on the map and see that there are not outbreaks and already challenges with the medical system because too many people go into the emergency room at one time. And it's unless we get a little bit of a miracle with some kind of treatment, which I'm not very confident in. I know there are people out there that have all kinds of theories about it, but the bottom line is I don't think there's a simple answer coming immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And so this seems to be requiring us a level of patience that I don't know how well people are built for this kind of patience, but I do know, and I don't know exactly how you feel, but I know we're going to get through this, and we're going to, I hope, learn from it culturally and learn about from a medical and logistics standpoint. And maybe a year or two from now, maybe a year from now, maybe it's so far behind us, it's not as dominant in our day. But I think probably for close to the next year, this will be a dominant part of how we make decisions and all those types of things. So as I prepared for tonight, I tried to think about the different circumstances that people find themselves in, both in terms of trying to work from home if they have that kind of work, as well as all the stress that really comes from this. And so it's
here the situation is not, I think, not that different from yours. And also here many companies ask their staff, to work from home as well, and then people they have less salary, they start to worry about the future, so we don't know which direction it's going to so far.
Right. And the sort of basics of the human life is food, shelter, clothing.
Right.
And so, and shelter, I think, really means security, right? And boy, people's financial security, and even food security. Here we have a lot of kids in grade school, middle school, high school, that they get their breakfast and their lunch at school during the school year.
Mm-hmm.
And now with those school systems shut down, there's a few places where they're trying to offer them lunches, but there's a lot of kids here that probably don't have the same food security they had even a month ago, which you also worry about that too, right? Maybe the kids don't have as much to worry about in terms of the virus, but there are other things, hungry kids and empty bellies and just, it's a challenging time.
So Eddie, with this situation, I think it's very interesting, and you might have something to share with us about working from home.
I do, and so one of the things, not everybody knows my history, but for most of my working life, I've worked from home, had a home office, or I've worked remotely because I traveled for work. And so I've spent time in offices, but I've spent more time outside of offices working. And for a lot of people that are listening to us, they're being forced to go home, and hopefully their work is portable so they still can maintain a salary and have an income coming in. But you do find yourself with a lot of time, right? I mean, and then you also find yourself, and this is a discussion for another show, with your family, maybe more than you've ever been with your family. And that can be good or bad, right? And we're not marriage counselors here, so we are relationship counselors, so we won't get into that. But there's just a lot of dynamics. And so I made a little list of some of the things that are sort of what I call best practices. And let me talk about it in context of working from home. But really, this could be, even if you don't have purposeful work that's waiting on you. So for example, you're furloughed, which is you're temporarily laid off, which we have a lot of our workers in the US, particularly anybody in the service industry. So people that work at restaurants and hotels and things of that kind, that, there's hopefully that job is waiting for them when this is over, but all of a sudden they have a lot of time on their hands. And people kind of wonder about what to do with that. Of course, I'm not trying to dictate for anybody, how to live your personal life, but I've got some things that I want to share. And so I'll share this in the context of my personal experience. And then, you'll have to think about this in terms of your own experience. But here's the first thing I want to tell everyone. We are so consumed right now with the pandemic and the news that's reported or interpreted on social media or however you get your news, right? Everywhere we turn, everybody's talking about the pandemic, and they're describing or giving their own opinions about it. And oftentimes people that have commercial interests, they sensationalize the information. And so they want you to look at something and go, oh my gosh, right? And share it with your friends. And so they get paid to sensationalize information, good or bad, right? It may be something that's worth really talking about, but either way, particularly when we're isolated, I don't know how good that is. And there's research out there that suggests that screen time, whether that's the smartphone, the computer, or the television, too much screen time, no matter what it is not good for your psyche, and can actually drive people towards depression-like symptoms and really exacerbate whatever anxiety and stress that they already have. And so it can take a situation that maybe was manageable and make it much worse. Someone that's got a challenge with drinking, all of a sudden they may find themselves drinking daily, drinking too much, drinking all day long. Mm-hmm. And they can probably tell themselves, well, I can do this now and it doesn't really matter, but how easily will they be able to stop when it's time to go back to work? How might this affect them? Or eating disorders or other types of behaviors that are destructive that even under normal circumstances are difficult to manage, but now all of a sudden, it's terrible. So there's a concept out there called scarcity. There's books about this concept, and it's not necessarily talking about scarcity of food or money, although that can do the same thing. But when you have a scarcity of hope or a scarcity of security, then people don't think rationally. There's a change in your brain, in the brain chemistry, when people are faced with extreme scarcities. And you've maybe heard this term before, Perry, called fight or flight.
Yeah.
Right. And that's so, if I was walking down a path and a bear jumped out in front of me, right? My survival instincts, I hope, kick in. I may still have a problem, with the bear, but at least my survival instincts, and people often think about that as your adrenaline, but it's also cortisol, which is another hormone that it changes your physiology, and purposefully you think faster, but you don't think deeper. And so you may not give a problem all the wisdom that you have or experience that you have to try and solve it, because you're trying to make snap decisions, right? If I've got a bear in front of me, I need to be quick about this thing. I don't need to be thinking about bear details. I need to think my life is threatened, right? And you can create that same dynamic if you spend a bunch of time on your phone reading about all these statistics and or all the theories about the virus. At this point, a lot of these theories don't really matter. The virus is here. It's wreaking havoc and causing death. And so really it's just about, in this present moment, what can we do to mitigate the risk for ourselves, our family, and our community? What can we do cooperatively with our local community to try to mitigate the risk of somebody dying? My wife's mom is turning 80 years old this coming weekend, and we had a really nice celebration planned with family coming in from around the country. And when you're 80, we should celebrate, right? And we've had to change those plans, and that's a pretty simple decision to make, but it's just one of a series of decisions, because even though her mom is confident and she would love to see us and hug us, and she would if we'd let her, she just doesn't feel vulnerable. We don't want to do that, right? Because we're trying to not just be good for her, but good for other people she may come in contact with us, right? So this is the kind of thing that's challenging for us, but we all have to do it. But the bottom line is, for anybody out there that finds yourself more stressed, more anxiety than you normally have, the first thing you need to do is to build boundaries for you and the news. And do your best to not get into sensationalized news. It may have been entertaining for you in the past, but you just got your own mental health, right? You need to come out of this as physically healthy as possible and as mentally healthy as possible. And so that's really a lot of where my thoughts come from today, because not only from my own personal experience, but my experience from reading other people, talking to other people that are living a lifestyle of principally working off-site or at home. You know, what do they do? And so this word boundaries, if I could get everybody that's taking notes, sort of write boundaries down. And I want you to think about the boundaries that will help you get through your day. And one of those is limitations. Just like you might your teenage child, you limit their screen time. Maybe as adults, we need to limit our screen time because of what it sort of does to our psyches, because we probably have young adults or kids or parents that are relying on us to do a good job. If you're working from home, another aspect of boundaries is, if you've been used to getting up at a certain time of day, getting dressed, going to work, you know, you're going to work for 8 to 10 to 12 hours period of time, including your commute, whatever that happens to be, and all of a sudden that schedule stops, people cannot know what to do with themselves, right? And so I encourage people to hold on as much as possible to the processes that they go through on a daily basis. If you're, you know, for me, I normally get up between 5:36 and 6:30. Sort of depends on what, you know, if I'm traveling or what's going on. If I were all of a sudden every day starting to sleep till 8:30 or 9 or whatever happens to be, right? That would be such a change. I might not be able to change very effectively back the other way. And there's a portion of my day I'd give up, right? So if you've been accustomed to getting up and commuting, you should try to get up at a similar time as in the past and try to hold on to that dynamic of how much you sleep and when you get up. And if you're accustomed to getting up and showering and shaving or doing whatever, all of a sudden, because you're working from home, don't just let yourself go. There was a funny movie with Michael Keaton years ago called Mr. Mom, I think it was, and his character got laid off and he switched roles with his wife. She went to work, he stayed at home. And at one point he'd been wearing the same clothes over and over again. He hadn't shaved. And, he sort of lost all this, and he lost influence with his wife and his children, right? And so maintaining connection to your habits and building a beginning and an end to your workday, right? I think that's really critical. So for me, I don't want to be working all night if that's not what my schedule is. So oftentimes, so this is my evening hour. I know it's your morning, it's my evening. And I do quite a bit of these types of calls in the evening hours. And so what I do is I break up my day so that I've still got my personal space to go walk with my wife or the dog or exercise or whatever that happens to be. So one of the things I tell people is as you build these boundaries, what I'm essentially describing is to maintain a schedule or develop a schedule. Instead of just waking up and letting the day unfold as it does, that's okay if you're on vacation, but vacations have a beginning and end. Where I live in North Carolina, we've been under these stay home rules now for right about 3.5 to 4 weeks. And it looks like, based upon the information being shared, that this is now going to be extended till probably the end of May. And so that's going to be maybe 10 or so weeks, right? That's not like a vacation. And so I can't just afford to just let my day unfold as it does. I mean, I think that's a romantic idea, but I don't think that's realistic. And so if you work from home, particularly if somebody's relying on you to be work productive, build boundaries and a schedule on how you do things. And when I say boundaries, I'm also talking about if you've got other people in the house, make sure they know you're trying to work. Just as they wouldn't come to your office and just barge in the door without knocking or making an appointment or whatever happens to be, you don't want that to all of a sudden change in this situation where it's very difficult to do your work and be productive. And so I learned a long time ago. Now my kids are all grown up and they don't live at home anymore. And so it's just my wife and I. And so we've been doing this so long that we don't have to have this common discussion. But when I had little kids in the house, right, we had to say, this is dad's work time, or this is mom's work time. And so you can't just barge in there. You have to respect those boundaries and places. I found that useful. When I first started working from home, I did not have a home office, but I made sure I worked in a different room than the kitchen, which is the most social part of our house, or the living room, which had softer seats, couches, right, for people to watch TV and be entertained. And so I would put myself at the end of the dining table, right? So I had a flat surface to work off of and a chair. And it's important, when you do that you keep that environment sort of as clean and clear as possible, right? So I'm a big believer in having as clear an area as possible so it seems orderly, because the more orderly that is, the more orderly your mind will be. Your mind tends to adopt the chaos of your surroundings. And so if you say, hey, kids, I'm going to be working in the dining room here this morning, so you can come see me at lunch, but not before, right? Building boundaries and thinking through your day. And all of what I'm describing is really sitting down and making a plan for yourself. Because if you just sort of let things happen or unfold as they do, the whole day will come to an end and you've not accomplished any of the things that you wanted to. And the same thing in this regard goes with television, social media. I'm a big believer to not just refresh your email all day long. You check your email at certain times. I keep my phone face down because I'm like a lot of people, right? There's lots of people texting me, family, friends, work as well. So I check it on a schedule, right? I check it first thing in the morning. I check it mid-morning, and then I check it around lunch, and same thing in the afternoon, because I don't want to just stop everything I'm doing to answer the latest text. So it's just remembering that you can control all these things coming at you that will improve your productivity. The reason I bring that all up is if you're in an office with coworkers, you probably don't take personal calls. Mm-hmm. You probably don't stop what you're doing to do those types of things. And so the work environment has a built-in set of boundaries that you'll have to try to create when you're at home. Because if you don't, again, days will go by and you're frustrated, your anxiety will build up because you're not accomplishing what you want to. And so having having this, and it also means you don't have to be as disciplined. If you build the boundaries, it doesn't rely as much on self-discipline. Now, I trust people have self-discipline, but in a situation like this, the more anxiety you have, the less discipline you probably have. The other side, I believe it's important when you work from home to consider that is with food. It's easy to get into a situation where you've got free access to the kitchen. You most likely could sit and eat at your desk and nobody would really say anything because you're not on a Zoom call all the time or what it happens to be, or a video call. And so you can find yourself eating more than normal, snacking more than normal. And next thing you know, all this hard work you put into your good health practices and exercise are all out the window. You know, they're gone in 4 weeks or 6 weeks, right? All of a sudden you show up at the end of this stay-at-home situation that we all are facing globally, and you're like, oh my gosh, all that hard work I did over the past 2 years to lose that weight or to lower my blood pressure or whatever happens to be. And so I think building boundaries with food is likewise important. If you're accustomed to having a quick or an easy breakfast or something as you're going to the office or whatever it be, do the same thing. So I tell people to meal prep. So one of the things I'm a big believer in is don't finish today without some idea about tomorrow, both personally and professionally. So when my workday is getting ready to end, I look at my calendar, I look at my to-do list, and I think about, okay, what do I have in the morning? What didn't I do today? And what's most important? So that I don't get up in the morning and then try to have that conversation with myself or try to reestablish what my priorities are. People can text me or email me with what they think is the priority, but I don't want that to dictate the priority. They may send me something that's really urgent, and so I need to stop my other plans, but I'd rather that be because I was thinking about it all. And so, you know, now it probably doesn't take me 5 or 10 minutes at the end of whenever I stop working to think, okay, what's tomorrow? What do I have a call with Perry? You know, what material do I need to work on and prepare to do a good job for her and her audience? Do I have a meeting with the finance, whatever it is, right? So the night before, and so I get up in the morning, I've got less anxiety. When I go to bed, I've got less anxiety because I already have thought about these things. And the same thing for me with food. So maybe people would find it boring, but I lay it out and I have a good idea of what I'm going to do for breakfast and lunch. And then, you know, these days, because we don't go to the grocery store as much, my wife and I think about what are we going to have for dinner as well ahead of time, right? So we know, have that plan. And that's not always true. I do think I'm boring, but I'm not that boring to always have every meal planned. But I do think it's important to think about those things because they can throw you off and make you less productive. So that's sort of the things I think about. And here's the last thing I'll say about food is that be a mindful eater. Sometimes you need to stop and say to yourself, why am I eating this? I don't even like it that much. Mm-hmm. So my wife and I will joke that, you know, if we order a dessert or something and we're going to splurge, what happens to be, if we take a few bites and it's not good, we said to ourselves, you know, it's not worth it. I'm going to set this aside. If I'm going to waste these calories, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make sure it's really good. It's just a part about being a mindful eater. So if you have some boundaries, if you think ahead of time and plan, working from home or being stuck at home during this period of time, you're less likely to sort of get off track on those things that are valuable to you. And if you don't have work to plan, then you could plan, you're going to get up in the morning as you normally would, and I'm going to read this book. Tuesday mornings reserved for a couple hours reading with this particular book I've always wanted to read. Or I'm going to go garden in the back, right? But thinking about things and planning them is important. And so the other thing I was going to mention is that CBD, which over the last couple of years, it's really exploded. And there's obviously a mountain of sadness that's come from the coronavirus, but there's a little girl named Charlotte that her personal story is really what motivated lawmakers around our country to go ahead and make CBD available. She passed away this weekend from the virus, and so CBD has been on my mind because all the CBD that people have access to and all that, really, without that little girl and the relief CBD gave her for epilepsy, we might not have this, right? Which is such a great tool. Supplements can be a tool.
Mm-hmm.
So just like I talk about all the time, detox, getting heavy metals, environmental pollutants out of the body with zeolites, and then also trying not to eat foods with heavy metals and environmental pollutants, kind of frees up your system to work more efficiently. Superfoods, things like our super greens and our protein, other fresh fruits, vegetables, cruciferous vegetables, things like that, those nutrients in there, your mitochondria inside your cell uses those nutrients to provide energy to your body. And that's how it works, right? So food is fuel. CBD is interesting because from a nutritional standpoint, it doesn't have this standard nutritional benefit we think of like vitamins and minerals, but yet it's critical because CBD, so we're talking about cannabidiol, and we talk a lot about CBD. It has this reputation for helping out with inflammation, everyday stress and anxiety, which I think is huge. There are people that talk about it helping out with discomfort, joint discomfort, restfulness, that helping out with temporary inflammation also is good for the heart. It has an antioxidant quality, so it helps to fight free radicals and the cascade of damage there. It does this because it brings balance to your system. And when you're stressed, the chemicals that you make in a stressful situation create an imbalance in your endocannabinoid system, which every human being and all mammals have an endocannabinoid system. When it's out of balance, your immune system doesn't work properly, your digestive system doesn't work properly, your central nervous system doesn't work properly. And so the reason people have gotten benefits from taking quality CBD products is it brings balance back to the endocannabinoid system. During this time, in addition to trying to eating as good as you can and managing stress, get yourself some CBD oil. And if you need to use it to start your day so that you've got managed stress in this stressful situation, maybe your office had to lay off 6 of 8 people on a team, and so 2 people are trying to do 8 people's work or whatever it happens to be. Having a stress reliever that's not something like alcohol or prescription drugs is a more healthy approach to this. And the immune system and respiratory system, which I think all of us worry about this virus in that, I feel confident in my health, but will I be able to handle the virus if I get it? That's a thing. Well, if you've got a healthy immune system, you've got a better chance. There's no guarantees, as we obviously see. And so using CBD oil can be an important tool, not just all the time, but hyper-focused on this period of time. And so those are sort of things that have been on my mind. And I've had a few questions from our audience come to me through Facebook. And there are a lot of people thinking about these things, right? How to manage themselves. And I had one lady say, I don't know what to do with myself. I've been doing this job and going to it for 30 years, and all of a sudden it's not there. And she has adult kids, and those kids aren't around. And so she kind of finds herself really isolated. Keeping and maintaining a routine, doing these things we talked about will help in that regard. And don't be afraid to use the CBD oil. It's good for you.
People are very stressed now here in Thailand too. I think CBD is a good choice, but here we are not allowed there to use CBD oil. But from your country or other countries, I think it's a good choice to consider.
Maybe this will cause your government to change their opinion about it so people can have access to it.
And one more thing I want to mention about your super green juice, Eddie, because I drink it every day. It's so convenient, because sometimes it happens many times now in supermarket, we lack of vegetables, green vegetables because of transportation or whatever reason. So
Sure.
I just drink your green juice. Perfect.
I think so too. And we have a similar situation. And now if we can go to the grocery store, you wait in line because they only let a few people in at any given moment. And so we just don't go as often. So I'm not getting as many fresh fruits and vegetables. So I do feel fortunate to have my greens powder. That's a big help.
Eddie, by the way, We at the beginning we were talking about working from home, your company. I mean, people can work with your company too, right? At the moment.
Yeah, that's right. And so, and let me say this for those that don't realize it. We announced a special promotion this month, just recognizing what's going on. And so for those that don't know our story, we're an 8-year-old organization, a direct sales company. We operate in 60 some countries, and we've actually grown quite aggressively over the last 90 days, including the last several weeks. I think maybe people that weren't paying attention to their health before now are like, okay, I need to pay attention to these things.
Uh-huh.
But also there's clearly an element of individuals that are thinking, you know what, I need to have a side hustle. I need to have something else, like, you know, to not totally be reliant upon my work. And if you do this right, you can build a royalty type residual income. So we want to do our part. And so we have our $50 gift card coupons. And for anybody watching that wants one of those, Perry, just get in touch with Perry and she can get you one. But you can use that for any of our most popular product, the Calm 750 or the Pure Body Extra Strength, which is globally the most popular product, to get that at a really inexpensive. And this month, as you go through the checkout process, if you'd like to get a VBO pass and explore more about our business, it's free. Mm-hmm. So there's no cost. The worst thing that means is that for the next year, you can buy the products at discount because you have the pass, but it might also give you a chance to explore this as a business. If you find that you're enthused about these products, it's something you can advocate for, then we're happy to revenue share and pay you a royalty for doing that. Mm-hmm. And so it's something for people to consider. And, you know, we've more than doubled what we normally would have in terms of people getting involved with the business. And I think promotion helps, but it's also, people are thinking about that side hustle is an important thing right now.
Yeah, and I will put the link of working from home under this video. If people are interested, just click the link there. Okay. Yeah,
and then as they go through, they'll have pop-ups and things on the website that show them what to do. But if you click on it, it'll go into your cart and there'll be no charge. So.
Okay. Thank you so much, Eddie, for sharing with us today.
Thank you, Carrie. Good luck to everybody.
Okay.
Thank you.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.